answer, and other times that answer maybe it's not so great. Maybe it's got an off day. Maybe you didn't word the question quite right. Could be any number of different things. And so how can you use AI to help improve what you're doing? And I get this a lot. AI lied to me, right? People will say that all the time. AI lies to me. And when it does, when it does lie, air quote lie, right, unquote, it's typically doing something along the lines of it's making up data. I've told the story about the person, the attorney who had his paralegal go out and create a brief for the court, and then the attorney didn't read it. They just submitted it. When they just submitted it, the judge and the court found that some of the case law that was cited in the brief wasn't real. It was made up. And the attorney almost lost his license to be a lawyer during that period. And so I've talked to you about hallucinations and the need to double check. But let's think about this a little bit further. Is there a way we could go deeper on that? Is there a way we could use AI to help us check itself? And so we've talked about that. And when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, you can do that. You can ask AI to check itself. So let's dig in a little bit. So, when we talk about AI and we talk about the importance of it and how it might be able to double check itself, we depend on it. We depend on it every single day, a lot of us. It gives us output. It gives us things very, very quickly. But, we're still in that phase where it's like, okay, is this right or not? What's the quality of what it's given me? Is it giving me what I need? More importantly, is it giving me what's accurate, right? The last thing we want to do is be that attorney who submits that brief to have the court tell us, hey, the case law you cited here, that's not valid, right? It's not good. It's made up. It puts you in question. It puts your career in question. So we're concerned about quality, but yet we want to be fast. We want to get it back. We want to be able to maximize our time. And so, how can we do that? How can we take the time to actually go in and review it? We could do it the old-fashioned way, right? We could click the citations and go to the websites and validate that those are there. That's one way to do it, and we certainly should do that. The other way you can do it, though, is maybe using AI to check itself. With the amount of time that it saves us, we should be able to invest a little bit of time in reviewing it ourselves, but also asking AI to review it. And so let's talk about what that means. So when we think about where AI goes awry, right? Where it goes wrong, where does it go off the beaten path, right? There's some common things that it might do. We've talked about this. We've talked about hallucinations. We've talked about, the fact that there are biases. We all have biases. They all could be wrong. And we could, and there's biases built into AI. They just come from the internet. We were talking on Saturday during office hours, and one of the folks that was there brought up the fact that AI doesn't do a good job of representing Africans, for example, right? When this particular individual was talking about how she was generating an image, trying to get an image, and she gave it down to the city and the state and the village, and very detailed, and it still couldn't make it up, right? That's because of the biases that are out there, right? It still wasn't coming out right because it's mostly geared toward Caucasian people, right? And that's where most of its data that it was trained on came from. So those biases are in there, right? And so if we think about those biases, not only about the biases of AI, but about our biases, what are those biases and how do we catch those? How do we catch the made up facts? How do we catch the fatal errors, right? The factual errors where the errors are just flat out wrong. So when AI goes wrong, it goes wrong because of a lot of those reasons. And it can have an impact. It could mean that you get fired. It could mean that maybe you implement a business strategy that's just wrong and you miss the mark completely. I go back to and point out, human-centered AI. Human-centered AI, that's why we're in the mix. That's why it's not just automatically generating. We want to be able to double check it. We want to get the best information we can. So I just talked about this a little bit, right? That when we're talking about AI, we're talking about how we judge it. And there are a couple different ways that we can look at this. AI creates it, right? So AI is the one that generates the content, does the analysis, creates the videos, the images, whatever. And then we should double check it. We should go in and look at it for any errors we see that might have been created. And then we're going to fix those errors. So if we bring in a self-review, right, we can ask AI to do its own self-critique. We can ask it to analyze its own outputs. We can have it be part of the refinement process. It helps us from a quality control standpoint because now we're using it to not only create the content, whatever that might be, or do the action for us, we're asking it to also validate that it's got the right standards and that it's actually the output we got isn't just, garbage, that the output it's giving us is what we need it to be and that it's accurate. So there are a couple of different ways you can do this. You can do consistency checks. So you can ask it the same question twice, right? And see if it gives you the same answer relatively twice, right? That's one way you can do it. The other way you can do it is to use an error detection. So you can use, specialized models from OpenAI and Meta, for example, will flag potential issues in AI generated content. So you could go out and do a search on those. And then you can also create a scoring system, a rubric for it to go out and validate and evaluate its confidence that it's gotten itself. And also, how much uncertainty is there in the answers that it gives you? So how do you do that? I've struggled with this for a while. And what I came back to is the obvious answer that I seem to give for everything, right? Who is the best prompt engineer? Who is the best at critiquing whether something is factually correct or not? We are, but that takes us a while, right? It takes us some time to do that. What if we asked AI to do that? What if we said in our prompt, when we're inputting our prompt, double check yourself, right? And make sure that all information provided is factual. Or what if we said ensure that all links, when clicked, do not return a 404 error or a 401 error, right? We actually go out and ask it to do that and to do it so. What would that do for us? How might that improve what we're trying to do? So let's talk about AI proofreading its own summaries. Right? So we're going to have AI. We ask AI to generate a text summary. We've got a document, a news story, a blog post, and we want AI to generate a summary of it. So it will go through and it'll generate the summary. Once it does that, then we say to it, okay, now that you've done that, go through and review that summary for any factual information and make sure that it is accurate. And it will go through and it will go through and do its review, and it will double check it. And then it will give us the results that it'll go through and give us the results. And then we can tell it what to do with that article, right? Do you want to do you want to go in and fix the items that it found to be inaccurate? Or do you just want to copy and paste it? If you do that, if you just ask it to go through and review itself and take a look and make sure that everything's factual, it'll improve your accuracy by 26%. So why would you not do that? Why would you not take a few extra seconds to go in and do that? So that's how you can use AI to proofread your material. You can use it to go in and test coding. So you can ask it to go in and if you're writing code, you can ask it to go in and suggest code snippets that should be improved. You can have it go through and look at the code and identify any bad or obsolete code, right? Any code that's not being used, and have it go through and do that. In essence, reading its own code, right? So it can go through, and when we do that, it improves your accuracy by 18%. Now I'm going to stop a second. I'm going to ask a question, and I'm going to let you all answer. I gave you two examples, right? Proofreading a blog post or a blog article and going through and essentially doing a self-check on software code you wrote. Now, I would like for you all to just speak out and think about, after thinking about it for a couple of seconds, what could you self-check? Based on what we're doing right now, what could you have AI self-check for you? So I'm going to take a drink and just feel free to bring them out. Hello, is anybody there?
Yes, we hear.
Okay, let's see. There's a couple things in here. Invoice totals is one. Let's see what else we've got. You can ask AI to self-check. Golly, that box is references, yeah. Grant proposals, contracts, yep. References to published works, yep. Grammar and spelling, yes. Assessment, yeah. Grammatical errors. Interview tips, yep. Ask how sure it is 5 accuracy. Okay, so those are all great ideas, right? We're asking it to evaluate itself. We're asking it to go through and talk about and validate what it gave us. I think somebody had their hand up, didn't they? Nope, must have gone down. So we can use statistics. So we can use AI to go in and double check itself. We can use AI to go in and make suggestions for us. In addition to double checking the accuracy, we could ask it to do what? We could ask it to validate that it is in the, that it's at an 8th grade level so that most of our constituents can understand it. We can ask it to go in and we can ask it to take on a specific role and take a look at it. You are a certified public accountant. Review this spreadsheet and identify any errors that you might identify, any potential errors that you might find, right? Maybe it's a balance sheet. So you can use AI to go in and do that and review the output it's created. In your projects that you have going on right now, in those projects, you're asking it to write paragraphs, right? To write certain things. You're asking it to create an outline. Have you, and this is a rhetorical question, have you asked it to go AI to go in and review your outline and make any suggestions? Have you asked it to go in as you write your first paragraph, asked it to go in and review it? Has anybody done that? Has anybody asked it? Has anybody asked AI to go in and review their outcomes? I got to know. Right?
No.
So, no. So why would you want to do that? What would be the advantage? What would we do in the old days? In the old days, I say in the old days, 6 months ago, what would we do? We would take that output and we might have we'd read it ourselves. And if we had some friends or whatever, we would turn around and we would say, hey, can you proofread this for me? Can you give me your ideas on this? Do you have any thoughts on this? What do you think about this draft? Right? And we'd rely on that individual. Hopefully they'd get a right response back to us fairly quickly. But now what can we do? We can get an almost instantaneous response out of and feedback by just simply asking AI to go in and do it. If we, and I've talked about this a lot, we go from here to here to narrow the focus, right? Imagine you're writing a book. And you put in this prompt. You are a book editor. Review this book, chapter 1 of this book, and make 3 positive suggestions, or find 3 positive points, find 3 negative points, and identify 3 things that I can fix to improve the book. There you go, right? There you go. There it's going to come back to you, and it's going to tell you what you can do, what's good about what you did, what's bad about what you did, and then 3 things that you can do to improve it. It will probably ask you one more question. And that question would be, do you want me to fix it? So not only will it identify the good points, the bad points, the things you can improve, and make 3 suggestions, it will also fix it for you. And you can tell it which ones you want fixed. So I might want option 1 fixed and option 1 and option 3 fixed. I don't want option 2 because yes, it's wrong, but that's kind of my style. Right? So it's going to make it more authentic if I use that, if I don't do number 2. And it will go through and fix it for you. And it will iterate on it, right? And so by going through that process of doing that, you're essentially iterative and incremental as you go forward. You're still in control. You're still the one deciding what goes in, what goes out, what changes get made. You may look at it and say, okay, you've reviewed it, and what's the tone of this book? And it may come back and say, the tone of this book or this particular chapter is very negative. And instead, what I want a more uplifting tone. It will go through and you can ask it to rewrite the chapter and make it more uplifting. And then ask it what tone it's got again. So it's writing it and then it's reviewing itself. Is this an uplifting tone for this particular chapter? Just doing that will improve your accuracy. Just doing that will improve the quality of what you got. It doesn't replace you though, right? You're still in the driver's seat. You're still the one making the decisions. And that's what we want you to do. We want you to be able to do that. We want you to be able to continue to drive the changes forward. So are there any questions on that? right? Okay. Let's see if there's any in the chat. There's none. Okay, so far. So I'm asking it for improvements, right? I've asked it for how do I improve? You can also ask AI to go through and look at other aspects. Is this content appropriate for college students? Is this content appropriate for the regular public? Right? By doing that, now you're using it to become an expert in what you're not. If you're writing a book, which is one of the options for you, right, as part of your project. If you're writing a book and you're writing a kid's book, is this topic appropriate for children from 6 to 12? You're using it to establish what those safety rules are. You're using it to go in and validate that you're not doing something that's bad. Does this data that I've uploaded have any personal information that should be kept confidential? Wow. Now you've essentially pulled in a cybersecurity specialist to look at the data that you've got and say, okay, now what is this data good, right? Am I safe to do that? You can ask it to anonymize it, right? To make it generic names and delete fields and change the data so that it's not something that's going to get you in trouble. Right? And it will review it. It will identify the data that should be secured. Now, does it replace a cybersecurity review? No, it doesn't, right? It's still, we're using it to give us guidance to minimize our risk, right? In this case, to minimize our risk in terms of how we're doing. We can use that to a certain degree. We can use AI also to moderate itself from the standpoint of, this is for kids from 12 to 18. We're giving it some implied rules by saying this is for kids 12 to 18. Well, what's not applicable for 12 to 18-year-olds? So you can have it do those, I refer to it as self-filters, right? It evaluates its own outputs. We can, excuse me, we can have it, by doing this as well, we can also minimize the risk that we put something out that's offensive, right? Because we're asking it to evaluate itself. It's got a broader spectrum than what we do. I may think that something is okay. I may be culturally insensitive, right? Hard to believe out of me that would be culturally insensitive, right? And it may not be intentional. It may just be something that didn't know, didn't understand. And so it's important that we take a look at that and that we use AI to help us. Excuse me. So it will, it helps eliminate potential errors for us in terms of the reduction of toxic content, right? That we didn't intend for it to have. Any questions so far? I come back to it again, and I know I kind of beat my drum on this constantly, right? AI needs to have humans in the loop, right? We're the ones setting the rules. We're the ones that are telling it what to do. We're the ones that are instead of focusing on the entire document or the entire issue, right? The potential for the entire issue. We're letting AI go through and take a cut at it and come back and tell us where it thinks are the problem areas. Where are the things that potentially we need to resolve or we need to focus on. And it helps us use standards and information that maybe we don't have access to, we've never been exposed to. So it will help us do that. And it gives us, by us, it kicking out its responses and letting us know we're still in control. We're still in control. I might have written a blog post that I was focused on adults only. And I may ask it a question. Is this culturally insensitive? It might be culturally insensitive to kids between 6 and 12. Right? Well, if I'm a comedian, maybe I want to be. Maybe that's my approach. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but it gives us the control that we get to decide what's appropriate and what's not. It's there helping us. And it may help us from the standpoint of it's going to allow us to be able to focus on the real problem areas because it's doing that pre-screening for us, right? It's doing that cursory look for us. And so it allows us to be able to really spend our time effectively and focus on the right areas. Thoughts,
Hello.
questions?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. Indeed, I'm finding this is very interesting because I'm one of those that used to do it the traditional way. When I discovered, because I lecture, that some of it was just one of the first times I used it, and I just decided to check for the article itself. And I found out that it wasn't there. That was very heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
Then I now, going forward, I had to always check every single references it brings up for any of the topics I brought up. So I'm really glad with this understanding of how I can address it. But my question today is, so for any other things, so those are articles that you get references. So what if it is, I asked it, I've helped, together with the AI, we've developed like a grant proposal. Now there's no real referencing there per se. There's not too much of it. So it generates something for me that I must do these checks, or are there times when it's okay not to do it? I don't know. Have I communicated my question?
Your question is are there times when it's okay to not have AI check itself? Is that right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah. It depends on you. Right? It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you're, you might, I always have it check it. I don't always take its advice. The reason being, I want to make sure that I am, if I'm asking it a question and to check itself, then what I'm trying to do there is make sure that it reflects what I want it to. And so in some cases, it might acknowledge the approach that I've taken, but I always ask it that. And it really kind of comes down to, for me, it comes down to, do I really want to take the advice or not? I'd like to know it and be able to say, yeah, I thought about that. I checked it, but I was intentional about what I did, and I chose not to take that suggestion or to take that approach because of whatever it is, right? Whatever that reason is that I have. I like to not only check it, but I also like to be able to defend my decisions, right? So if it uncovers something I'm not expecting, and I still decide I'm good with it, then I'll go ahead and think about that just from the standpoint of having to be able to defend whatever position I'm taking. Does that make sense? I hope. I
Okay,
am
thank you very
amazed
much.
at
Yes, it does.
how
Then finally, this was in the beginning, you mentioned something about predetermined rubric.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Hello,
catch that.
Chris?
Yeah, all I caught was at the beginning you mentioned, and then
You mentioned something
you.
about predetermined rubrics.
Mhm.
You mentioned something about predetermined rubrics. I
Predetermined.
didn't
Yeah, I mentioned.
understand that.
Okay. Um, okay. So just, and I'm apologize if I'm repeating myself here, but I think a rubric is basically what we're going to grade something, or a set of criteria that we're going to grade something or judge something on, right? And we can we can use rubrics. We can ask AI to create a rubric to um, help us define or evaluate what we're doing. So we could create a rubric. For example, before you start writing a book, you might say, I want to create a rubric on, let's say it's a fantasy book. I want to create a rubric on evaluating the quality and the content of fantasy books. And you will get and it will come out with a rubric, right? It'll come out with 20% on this, 30% on that, da 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 da. You can take that rubric then, right, and use that rubric as you go forward, and use it as your basis for judging what it is you're trying to do. And so a rubric is another way where you can use AI to help judge itself.
Okay, thank you very
Okay.
much. Understood.
Let me expand on that just a little bit more, because as I stopped there, and I wanted to share, after I stopped, I thought of something that I had done in the past. So one of the things I did when I was just starting to understand AI was, if you notice, AI is always very positive, right? It comes back. You can tell it, I want to put artificial intelligence, I want to create a product that is a toaster to make toast, and I want to put AI in it, right? And when you think about that for a second, or think about a blender or anything, right? I want this pen to have AI in it. There comes a point in time where there's good ideas and there's bad ideas, right? And so AI will tend to be very, very positive. And so if you create a rubric and you say, all right, now evaluate my book, it's going to evaluate your book, and it's probably going to come out pretty good in terms of your score. Why is that? Why is it that it creates a rubric and then turns around and grades your book, and it says, or your prompt, or whatever it is you're having it grade, and it comes back and it tells you, hey, nice job. You did, da da da. You got a 93 out of 100 on this. Are you a great author? No, not necessarily, right? The rubric was created by AI with the best information that it had. And just like a human, it will create something, and then it will say, here you go. And we as humans, a lot of times, a lot of us will say, before we go, here you go, we'll look at it and say, okay, I asked it for this. Did I really get this? Right. And so that's what we want to try to do when we're creating rubrics. Let's figure out what this rubric really is, and is it good? And then let's take it and let's compare it, and let's give it something to go by, right? the difference between the metric system and the English, inches, yards, miles system, right? Or the difference between kilograms and grams and pounds and ounces. It weighs what it weighs, right? How we measure it is different. And so I have taken a rubric that I developed for a book, and I had it go against, I asked it to go through and evaluate 10 different books out of Amazon's bestseller list. And then I threw in a couple of clunkers, right? A couple of bad books, had it evaluate all those books, and then then submit my book to it, right? And what happened was, when I first submitted it, it was a fantastic book, great idea, blah, 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 right? It was very complimentary. Then when I submitted it, after I had trained my rubric, right? I'd given the rubric, here's a good book, here's some not so great books, right? And evaluated them, it put mine about middle of the pack, right? And so when we talk about that, when we're talking about evaluating it, we not think of it as giving it examples. We're giving it the criteria. This is what a pound is. This is what an ounce is. This is what we want it to be. This is our standard of how we measure it, right? My book was not good as good to great, right? Or the 5 dysfunctions of a team. It wasn't anywhere near close to that. But yet it put it right in that same category until I took the rubric and evaluated the other books. Then it could slot mine in where it needed to be, right? So when we talk about having it review it, there are times when you might want to think about, okay, now how am I doing? How is this doing, not only compared to what the rubric says, but how's this doing in comparison to other materials? Right? So as an entrepreneur, if I've got a business plan, right, it's going to come back and tell me, great business plan, good job. But if I'm using it as a great business plan, if it's a great business plan, then why am I not a bazillionaire now? It's because it didn't have anything really to evaluate it to. It had best practices, and it's always geared toward being positive and optimistic. It's not going to tell you you're awful, right? Unless you tell it, be critical. And that's my point. A long-winded way of saying to you, encourage it to be critical. Encourage it to be critical, and to not sugarcoat things, right? Or not to be a very subjective reviewer, right? And that you want true feedback. Give it those kind of those kind of words, those keywords, to tell it you want it to be critical. You want it to be helpful. If you're an entrepreneur, going back to the entrepreneur, maybe you want to also ask, what's the marketing strategy for my competitor? What's the marketing strategy for the top producer in my particular category of types of businesses, right? How do I compare to them? So instead of leaving it just comparing to in general, how do I compare to my top competitors? You can use your rubric to go out and score against my top competitors, right? And then score yourself to identify, how am I doing compared to them? And you may say, okay, well, I'm not doing the same things. It's okay in this category because I've got an advantage here, right? But it's all about gathering the intelligence so you as a human can make the right decisions. And I see that there's a hand raised. So go ahead.
Good evening, Chris. Thank you
Good
for
evening.
everything that has been said so far. Just back to the references. I have noted that sometimes AI can give you references that don't exist. So if you ask the AI to review references which ideally don't exist, how does that work in terms of it being as accurate as possible to say that the reference does not actually exist? Because we've had
You
instances where we've had references that don't exist. We cite them and then we look them up, maybe let's say on another platform, and really it doesn't exist. So I have experienced that, especially in the law sector, where certain cases have been cited as reference to whatever case law that you'd want to persuade a court. But then when you go and look for that particular case, it's not there. So is AI capable of telling me that that case does not exist if it's the one that has actually given me that particular case or reference?
Yeah, yes, it can tell you because you're having it come at it from a different angle, right? So you're having
Okay.
it now. You're having it review it. You can ask it to cite the cases, right? Cite your sources. You can go out and click on those and see, is this source real or not? You can, and it will do the same thing. It can go out and it'll check and see, is the source real or not? It's not going to mean it's going to get every single one. But again, we're trying to do as entrepreneurs is trying to maximize our time that is available to us, right? We're trying to increase the time, take some of the mundane things and shove them aside, right? And let AI do that for us so we can focus on more valuable tasks that we have. So by having it check, if it catches, if there's 6 references that are cited in something you ask it for, and it finds 5 are right already are good references, and there's one that maybe it doesn't find, and you find it clicking on it, you haven't had to go. At least you're not going to have to go back and try and correct those all 6 of them. You're going to just have to correct the one. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It was just something that was running through my mind if AI is capable of accurately reviewing its own prompts. So I just tied it to references and just see how that works. But thank you.
Yeah, you might think about giving it a different view or a different role. So you might think about, can I take AI and can I think of a role that might be that might give it a different perspective? I'm going to stick with my book because that's easy for all of us to understand. I think I wrote a book, I had AI review it, and it didn't find much. Well, what if you change the role on that review to be, you are a New York Times best-selling book editor? I just took the focus of that. Instead of asking AI to review it, I took AI and said, zoom, down here, right? You're a New York Times best-selling editor, book editor. You've given it a very specific interaction or a very specific role that it may take that it didn't use when it was creating, because it was writing before. Now you're coming at it from an editor viewpoint. So that's one example of how you might validate it. You might say, if we're talking about a law brief, you are a judge working in Lagos, Nigeria. Review this material to see if there's any copyright violations. What did I do? Instead of it just being the author, I've said, you're a judge specifically looking at copyright. Does this meet copyright law, right? Or you're an accountant looking at a set of books. You're a certified financial accountant in Zimbabwe. Does that, you're giving it a focus. You're giving it not just the whole internet. You're saying, narrow that focus down. Take a look at it from this specific vantage point. I was doing another class this morning, and with some teachers. And one of the things I asked them to do was to write a story, and they wrote the story. And then I said, okay, now go in and ask them, now go in and review it as though you were a fifth grader, 11-year-old. And the story that they wrote, from an 11-year-old's perspective, they didn't get it. The story they wrote had all kinds of challenges when an 11-year-old wrote it. That, by the way, is a clue to our activity, what our activity is going to be today. That different perspective gave them a different viewpoint. And in that particular case, we're using it to come in and read something or to review something. And we're narrowing that focus down and saying, we want you to be this. And it's going to give us the improvements we need. So good questions. Remy, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chris, for the good job you're doing. I know that AI crawls and searches on already published materials that are available online. So I'm a bit worried. So where does it get those wrong references and links, that we are talking about here?
It gets it from the material that it has been trained on. So if we're asking for specific cases, it will go from its training material, and it may go as well it may do a web search. So you might find it, you might find blog references, you might find PDF references, if there's a PDF out on the web somewhere, different websites, news sites, things like that. It will cite them as well. So if you're, looking for the latest AI news, it may cite the AI website blog. Does that help?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it can get references from anywhere, right? And then, but if you're, again, narrowing that focus, we're asking for references. If you're a medical doctor, do you want references and you're writing an article you're going to publish? Do you want to get your references from YouTube? You're going to tell it that you may tell it, I only want you to use references from the American Medical Association or from, I'm trying to think of, maybe the Indiana University School of Health, of Medicine, right? Academic material. Thank you. And I was struggling, right? You may want to narrow that focus. You may want to say, I only want to look at, life sciences, or get into pharmaceuticals or whatever, right? Whatever that material is, you limit it. Again, you're taking that focus from here down to here in terms of those sightings, that material you're going to use. I hope that helped. I didn't confuse the issue. Might have, though.
That's fine. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. So here's some challenges with self-review, right? It only knows what it knows, right? So if it doesn't understand the context of what you're doing, you may get some blind spots, right? Overconfidence. I put this on here. This one really hits home for me. There are times when my wife asks me a question and I will give her an answer and I'm 95% sure it's right. Or maybe I'm 75% sure it's right. And I will give her an answer and it will turn out that I was wrong. but I sound like I'm right, right? The way I deliver it back is, is the sun shining today? Here in Indiana right now? No, it's not. But I may see it. I may say, well, yeah, it's shining, right? I may see it one little crack in the clouds. AI is like that too. It tends to be overly confident, and it tends to want to, when it gives you an answer, it's going to state it. Because you're not asking it, what's your level of confidence in this answer? How confident are you that this answer is right? How much room did you give it? How much room does it have to interpret the answer it gives you, right? It takes in all this information. Do you want it to be 100% factual, or do you want it to be creative, right? There are settings in there that can drive how confident it is. If you're asking a question that it's critical to you, it's accurate, you may want to say, give me how confident are you in that response? Cite your sources, right? You can help drive that, make sure that you're aware of that overconfidence and drive it out. It doesn't know its biases. It's blind to them. It doesn't know that it maybe was trained on data that is not representative of every situation, right? Every possible condition. It's only been trained on data in the US, and now we're using it in Europe, or we're using it in Africa. And what applied in the US doesn't apply, thank goodness most of it doesn't apply, to Africa, right? Maybe it doesn't apply. Maybe it doesn't apply to your situation. It doesn't know that. So it doesn't know its own biases. When we think about the example I give here is the one that's at the bottom. So Amazon built a recruitment tool that as you can read, it failed to identify its biases toward gender when people were applying to work at Amazon. They had multiple checks in there to make sure that it didn't, but yet it still got through, and Amazon quit using it in 2022. So why is it that it had that bias? What was it that made it that bias where it's not checking for gender, it wants to make sure that it's gender neutral, right? It's not every applicant, we're going to evaluate the applicant on their merits, not on what sex they happen to be. What was it that caused the problem? The problem was the data they trained the tool on happened to be all their current practices, right? All their current applications that they had. So their data was bad, right? The AI tool didn't know that all the data that it was trained on was not reflective of, and actually had gender bias built into it. And it wasn't reflective of what they wanted it to be, right? So you have to, as you're going forward, you always have to be questioning, is there bias in this? Is it something that is accurate? Let's see here, I see we got 3 messages. There is Blonde. Okay, academic material. Yes, academic. Great. So that AI can be several key stakeholders to see if the documents like training materials, but of course, looking also. Yep. I've experienced these blind spots. Yes. There we go. Good. Talking about self-review, right? Not only can AI review itself, it can review for you. If we take that a step further, I've got a job description that for a job that I'm applying for. And I want to make sure my resume is lined up correctly so that when they get my resume, it's going to be obvious that I'm a good candidate for this job and I'm going to get to the next level on this. How do you do that? You import the job description, you import your resume, and you ask it to evaluate your resume based on this job description. It will do that for you, right? It'll tell you what your strengths and weaknesses are and in your resume and where you can fix those and how you might be able to fix them. Going another step further, if you say you are an interviewer at InnoPower.ai interviewing for this position, please conduct an interview with me. Please conduct a mock interview with me. The AI will respond back to you with probably a few questions, and then it will start questioning you and give you questions that might be able to expect from an interviewer, right? So you're not walking in cold for an interview. And if you use this for getting a job, you might use it for an interview for an award, right? Where you're being interviewed, maybe you're up for an award. Maybe you're practicing for an interview with social media. Maybe it's a blog, or not a blog, sorry, a podcast that you're going into. You want to be prepared for what kind of questions. Maybe you want to be prepared to go in to talk to your boss about why they should promote you, right? You can use AI to help do that by just telling it what it is you want it to do and having it help you go through that review process. So it's a great tool to use. I was talking again this morning about it, how it does a good job of prepping people for interviews, right? For jobs that might be upcoming. I'll let you read this a minute. Okay. So when we talk about reviewing itself, how interesting is that? Imagine AI being able to go in and experiment with itself, to resolve medicines, to do thought experiments, right? Being able to look at different problems and coming up with new solutions that could solve those problems quicker and faster. We were faced about 5 years ago. We had this disease that came out, right? This virus that came out, right? Called COVID-19. We were able to get a vaccination within a year and a half, which was unheard of. Imagine being able now to have AI go through those simulations and figure out whether it's a good vaccine or not. Imagine being able to do Monte Carlo type simulations if you're a business and establish which way you should go in terms of business strategy and having it figure out based on where I'm at today, where should I go? I don't know. It can go through and help you do that. And those systems, right, can improve productivity. It can improve time to market. It still requires a human to make sure that product's going to work. If we're talking about using AI in medicine or in the medical industry, I don't know about you, but I don't trust it enough for it to come up and say, here's a vaccination you should take, or here's a procedure you should take. I still want a doctor to look at it, right? I still want that human intervention. I don't want to turn it over to machines. Think about how powerful, though, it would be to be able to get an answer. You're a rural doctor and somebody's got symptoms that you've never seen before. And you can put those in and have it come back and ask some questions and lead you through identifying what that might be. How quickly could you identify a disease and or a problem and get that resolved? What's that going to do for mankind? I think it's going to be really exciting on what kind of things it can do and how we can use it to improve not just our business lives, but our personal lives as well. So here's a checklist, right? One thing that I was on a different one that I didn't cover was going in and saying, all right, trying different models. And that's number one here. Select compatible models, right? So why would you want to try different models? Anybody there?
Sorry, we're here. I think I thought you paused so you will continue. Sorry. So I think maybe why? Because I've tried that, if I get your question right. I've used ChatGPT and Perplexity, and I put the same question to see if they'll give me different feedback. So it's just to see if where they're pulling out their feedback for me are from different sources. If I can get improved version, better answer from the different models. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, you're trying to get better answers, right? You could also validate one versus the other, right? Not just better, but is this one right and this one wrong? So that's one example. It also, you have different people training different models, right? Different companies, different data sets, different approaches. You probably don't want to consult ChatGPT for medical advice. Because why? Because it's got the whole internet, right? It's got everything from homemade remedies to experimental approaches, right? And everything in between. Do you want to trust that? Or do you want to go to more of a specialized, narrowed AI focus, right? So you might go to instead of using ChatGPT, you might use a different large language model, a different chat bot to go and that's actually trained on and focused on medical information, right? So you want to do that to see if maybe I get the wrong answer with this one. So having access to multiple models is important. You have that through InnoPower.ai. You've got 3 different models right now. You've got Claude, you've got ChatGPT, and I think you got Gemini. I'll double check it. So you've got 3 different models that you can try and see what the outcomes are. Are they the same or are they different? You can use AI, you can copy one and paste it into another one and have it compare its output to, you compare a Claude output to ChatGPT, and are they the same? Right? You can have it go through and do that for you. Okay. think let's see what else I want to cover in this section. Where'd it go? Do an alt tab because that'll get me to where I want to go. There we go. Okay. Kill that. Okay. I hope this is coming through. I think it is. You're probably sick of hearing me talk about human and AIs, right? Human and AI. The human-centered AI approach is really about not creating these AI things, agents, whatever you want, bots, whatever you want to call them. It's not about creating those that they go off and they do their own thing. We're talking about using AI to be your thought partner, to come alongside you, to augment your natural talent, your skills, your experiences, your learning, your empathy, your feelings, all that. We want it to come alongside. We do not want it to replace you, right? And you have to be engaged with it. But that doesn't mean that we can't use it to review, right? And to help give us guidance and advice on what we can improve. Okay. This is kind of a summary. It's a lot of work, a lot of reading. I'll let you read it. Blonde's going to send out the slides here when we're done. So I'll let you read that if you want to. Talked about that. Skip that. Skip that. Okay. So we're going to take a break. And during it, I'm going to give you 15 minutes. And what I want you to do during the break is, I want you to stand up if you're sitting down, stand up, get the blood flowing to your legs. I want you to go if you need to go use the restroom, go use the restroom, get something to drink. And do that for 10 minutes. And then when you come, and then I'm going to give you an additional 5 minutes. And what I want you to do is I want you to write a 500-word story using AI. Doesn't matter what the topic is. Make it your story. It's your, it's your creativity. So in 5 minutes, I want you to write a 500-word story. And then we're going to start back up and I'm going to have you do something with that story. Okay, so again, you have 15 minutes. I'll start back up at, it's what there? Is it 8:30 there? 8:15?
We start about 7:30.
You started at 7:30.
It will be 7:30. We'll come back. We'll come back at 7:30.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for that. I was thinking you
You're
were
welcome.
6 hours ahead of me. Okay, so at 7:30, come back and we will start again. And I'll have you do something with your stories. Okay, so 500-word story. Do it on your own. Take your break, and when you come back, we'll have you do something with it. Okay. So we'll see you in 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. All right. Let's get going. We're in the final stretch here, final half hour. So I just copied and pasted in the link for the attendance. Blondley will come on here, I'm sure, in a couple of minutes and put it in again, but I wanted to get it in there in case somebody wanted it. So let's now talk about your story. So somebody talk to me about your story.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Chris.
Where do you want us to start from?
Amelia,
Chris.
you got your hand raised.
Okay, I wrote about my first trip to Plateau as a student
Can
in
you hear me?
1997. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wait a
Okay.
minute, hold on a minute. It's probably me. I know what's going on. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm having a great conversation with myself, and I think I've messed this up. There we go. Dang it, Chris. Just a second. Let me get out of that. I made a mistake. Wow, I'll tell you while I'm going. I went to the restroom. And when I went away, I think it disconnected me. Okay. Let me try this again. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry. You'd think I wasn't a tech guy the way I operate sometimes, but I'd never thought going to the restroom would be a problem, but evidently it was. So, okay. Would you like to go ahead, Amelia?
Okay, so I wrote a story about my first trip to Plateau State in 1997 as a student. We're going for an inter-command games, which was hosted by Command Secondary School, Rukuba Road. And on our way, we were rendering on the songs that were composed by students, which was kind of mimicking our teachers. And our first stop was in Saminaka, where we had fried yam coated in eggs and chicken, grilled suya chicken. And getting into Plateau, the weather was totally different from where we're coming from. It was cold and freezing and chilling. And I really loved the weather, and I felt like I would grow up one day and live there. And so that dream, I now live in Jos. I reside in Jos on the Plateau. So it just reminds me that our dreams and our thoughts can come to pass. So that was the story I wrote to AI, and it adjusted it.
Very good. Very good. We've got a couple other hands raised. Doyinbo?
Yes, so good evening, everyone. I wrote a story and then I'll read the crafted prompt and then I'll read out what you wrote for me. So it says, write a whimsical 500-word short story titled Zara, the Dino Wrangler's Cosmic Moonwalk Adventures, from the perspective of Zara, a dinosaur keeper with moonwalks across different planets in our solar system. Structure the story day by day over 7 days, visiting one location per day. Day 1 on Mercury, scorched speedster with solar flares. Day 2 on Venus, veiled in clouds with misty volcanoes. Day 3 on Mars, Red Wanderer with dust storms and fossils. Day 4 on Jupiter's moon Europa, icy plains with subsurface oceans. Day 5 on Saturn's rings, icy boulders with zero grav spins. Day 6 on Uranus, tilted and turquoise with windy tilts. Day 7 on Neptune, stormy sentinel with liquid diamond waves. And so that's what it generated after what I had written. That was the prompt it crafted for me. And then it's now broke down the days because I asked about, I wanted it to give me some detail on carbon print. Then I talked about meals that I wanted to blend African Asian culinary influences. And so it gave me some ideas. And I talked about outfits that I wanted. And so it talked about the Kenyan waistbands, Akan earrings, Berber amulets, Nigerian cowrie shells, Swahili headbands. And then, because I asked it for hairdos, that I wanted hairdos. And so it gave me a 7-day story. And so, okay, so the story here, this is how it goes. Hi kids, I'm Zara, the best dino wrangler ever. I love my dinosaur friends and moonwalking. That's dancing like on the moon, bouncy and fun. Every day I zoom to a new planet with my magic spaceship. I wear cool outfits made from friendly earth stuff like recycled bottles and plant threads. No yucky pollution. Let's go on my adventure. So day 1, hot Mercury, zoom. I land on fiery Mercury. My suit is orange and shiny, made from bamboo cloth and an old asteroid bits. I have beady Maasai necklaces from seed pods and an Indian braid crown with vine ties. I moonwalk fast and dodge hot flares. I meet Myra, a sparkly fire sprite. We eat yummy Moroccan tangine, curry with Indian spices, hot and tasty, yum. Eco hero note. I used sun power to fly, just 0.5 star puffs. I planted magic melons to keep it cool. And then it goes on and on like that. So, I mean, that's the type of story that yeah. Then it gave me suggested images because I asked, what about images? And then it said, to bring this story to life, pair it with vibrant, kid-friendly visuals, use cartoon styles with big eyes, bright colors, and magical effects. Here's one idea per day, plus overall suggestions. You could draw them. Use free stock images from sites like Pixabay or Unsplash, or generate with AI tools. And then it gave me the different images, at least suggestions of images for each day. And yeah, so these images could make a fun picture, book, or video. What do you think of the story? Want to add more dino friends or change anything? Let's iterate. So that's mine.
That's a lot in 5 minutes. That's a lot. Good. Does anybody, let's do one more and then I'll give you the what you're going to do with it. Sorry, I'm on a small screen here. Alu Bunmi? Bunmai? You have your hand raised.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I'm sorry I mispronounced your name.
No, you did perfect. You did perfectly well with the name. Yeah.
So would you like to share about your story?
Yes. I wrote something. I was trying to write a book like a year ago. I couldn't really get to it, so I just wanted to write something brief on that. So, in accounting. I run an accounting and tax firm. So, I wanted to write a 500 words on the importance of accounting and the benefits. And I said it should give me real life stories of um, businesses or business owners that have not had proper bookkeeping. And it gave me a story, and it was very shocking for me because it took it showed names of clients that I actually have that I've never put on. So I'm wondering if it's using my phone data, and also mentioned some places in Lagos because I said I wanted it to be a Lagos story, Lagos, Nigeria. It mentioned places like Computer Village, which is actually in Lagos. And I was really very surprised about that. And I also wanted to try out what we learned today. I said it should review what it has written to make sure that it's 500 words. And as an editor, make sure that there are no grammatical errors. And it did that. It did that for me. So yeah, I read the story and it was quite interesting. Just seeing the play of words and all that. I would like to make it more simple because I say as an accountant, a professional accountant, so he put it in that way. So I would like to maybe make it more simple English for business owners. Yeah.
So how might you do that? How would you make it simple?
So
Simpler.
I'm going to add to the prompt, add after the maybe after the class or even during the class, send a prompt and say, can you make it simple for business owners who do not understand accounting? So use the simple term so they are able to. Yeah, so I'm going to put that prompt and see what comes up.
Yeah, that's one way. That's certainly a way you could do it. There might be another way you could do it too, would be to maybe, you could go in and say that, make it so that it is at a 14 or 15-year-old level, right? So you could say, make it simpler for people who don't da 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 da. You could also use, take it and say, all right, now I want to make it for somebody who's reads at a 14-year-old level, right? Which would also do the same. It would do the same thing, but it would take it down to that level of grade. Whereas what your approach gives it more, keeps it more business oriented. So either way would work. I like your, as I'm talking about it, I'm not so sure I like my way. I think I like your way better.
Okay,
So
thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep. So I'm gonna not, in an effort to keep us moving, I'm gonna, unfortunately, let's go ahead. Raluta, do you want to give us a quick overview of what you've done? Raluta, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Sorry about your name. I'm sure I said it wrong.
Right.
would you like to give us an overview of what you came up with?
Yes. So I put a prompt to say, as a lecturer, write a 500-word story on my first lecture with students on introduction to minerals. And it brought up a very interesting story, a title for the story. So it brought to minerals, and it brought up a fantastic story. But I'm just realizing that I should have added the specific class that I was going to give the lecture to, even though the focus is on what I did. But I think if I had mentioned the class that I was being assigned that I was going to teach, it might have brought up a different thing. So that's something I'll add after this. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Now what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to go and I'd like for you to take 5 minutes because we only have 16 minutes left. So I'd like for you to take your story and I'd like for you to ask it, go into the AI and ask it to rewrite the story as though it was speaking to someone different. It could be a different perspective. It could be as a third grader or a fifth grader, or it could be as a college student. I would like for you to go in and ask it to do that. And by doing that, what you'll do is it will go through and ask you a series of questions, and then it will go through and do it again. But I want you to add one thing. At the bottom of your story, or at the bottom of your prompt, I would like for you to add, before you display your results, go through and review the story and give me 3 suggestions for positive things, or 3 good things about the story, 3 bad things about the story, and 3 things that you can do to improve the story. Okay, so again, rewrite your story and ask it to change the perspective, right? If you're an accountant, I want it to be a business owner, or I want it to be somebody that's in their, at university, right? Change the perspective, and then also go in and ask it to, before it displays its prompt or before it displays its response, have it go through and what was I said? Go through and have it go through.
You said for it to go through and suggest at least 3 good things about the story, 3 bad things about the story, and 3 things that it would change about the story, if I got you right.
You got it right. Thank you for saving me there. I appreciate it. So
welcome.
Do that real quick, and then we'll get after you've done that and you get your response, just if you want to speak up, go ahead and speak up, because we're at 14 minutes now, 13 minutes before the class ends. And if you haven't recorded your attendance, my partner Blonley is reminding us that we need to do that. The link should be in the chat. Thank you, Blonley, for doing that for us. Okay, has anybody completed their prompt and wants to share? Yep. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead and speak.
Okay. So I changed my target audience to be fresh graduates, because I also train graduates from university. And I asked it for 3 problems and 3 great highlights about my story. And it says, from the problem with the previous story, oversimplification for inexperienced readers, limited, and it explained the point, but just trying to talk about the highlights. Limited technical growth opportunities, little emphasis on accountant role in decision making. And then the great points, it says strong real life relevance, clear links between poor bookkeeping and structure failure, and practical lessons with moral clarification. And then it rewrote my story. So I was thinking it would be the other way around, but interesting that the benefits and all the good and the bad came before the story, actually.
Yeah. Good. Anybody else want to share?
I could share. I had the long
Okay.
story the other time. Okay, so three good things about the story. It says
Mhm.
engaging and fun structure. The day-to-day format keeps it organized, and the mini adventure series, which helps hold attention. Then educational value, it teaches about planets, cultures, African and Asian influences, and eco-friendliness in a positive, kid-friendly way, making learning feel like play. Then it's inclusive and imaginative. The whimsical elements like alien friends and moonwalking spark imagination, and the eco-hero notes promote good values about without being preachy. Three bad things about the story. Some words are too advanced. Um, Terms like biodiversity weren't used, but even words like whimsical or subsurface implied in descriptions could confuse very young kids or beginners, making it less accessible. Length and pacing, 420 words, it might feel long for 5-year-olds, leading to them losing interest midway. Limited repetition for learning. While fun, it doesn't repeat phrases enough to reinforce language skills, which could make it less helpful for educational purposes like vocabulary building. Three things will change. Simplify vocabulary and sentences. Use words like big hot ball instead of fiery mercury. Very short sentences to make it easy for English learners to follow and repeat. Add repetition and explanations. Keywords will be repeated, e.g., bounce, bounce, bounce. And then shorten and focus on sounds, reduce overall length, emphasize fun sounds like zoom, yum, and make eco notes even simpler to practice speaking positive messages. So that's what it says to me.
Fantastic. So how do you feel about that response?
It's actually true because even though I think a lot of the stuff I put in, because originally it was for 5-year-olds, and a lot of the things that it came up with, and because of the prompts I gave it, were too advanced for 5-year-olds. And then I asked it to do it for somebody who is just beginning to learn English. And then that's why it came up with the repetitions and the sounds and things like that. So I could see that it was actually right because there were too many, the words were not, they were above 5-year-olds, even though I had specified 5-year-olds.
Mm-hmm. How did it conclude? Did it ask you if you wanted it to make the changes?
So it said as okay, as prompt engineering note, this rewrite shows how specifying an audience, e.g. for English learners, can transform content. It's like adding a filter to your prompt. The analysis step you requested is a smart way to reflect and improve iteratively. What did you like about this version? Want to add practice questions like what is moonwalking? Iterate further, like making it rhyme for learners. Let's keep refining. So that's what it suggested to me.
Nice. Good. And you feel like that it was valuable to do that.
Oh yes, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So that what the exercise that you all just went through is one of the great things about using AI to help us, right? We can go in and you can take something and you can make it better by using your thought partner, which is AI. I asked you specifically to change the focus, right? So if your audience was 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds, change it to somebody in college, for example, right? Or if it's for accountants, change it to teachers or whatever focus we change it to. Think about the power of that. And I'm going to speak specifically to education. And not only education like within schools or university, but within the business. When you're educating people as part of your business, or you're educating your peers, or you're educating students, right? Would they all come in at a different spot? everybody comes in with a different understanding and a different knowledge level. Now, using a tool like AI, we can go in and have it review what we put together and revise it so that we have a version for, plumbers, and a different version for electricians, maybe if it's a marketing blurb, right? We've got two different things, but yet we only had to come up with the original. And then we use AI to help us morph that into something that speaks to that other audience. So it gives us the ability that we can talk to different people based on where they are. Students, for example, a student who is who maybe is in their fourth year, right? Maybe they read at a third year level or a second year level. Now we can take material that we've got for fourth year students and put it and make it a customized sheet that goes down to their reading level and meets them where they are and helps bring them forward, right? So this idea of using AI to be able to review itself, as well as the idea of coming in and saying, all right, now we're going to change the audience scope. We're going to change who this is for, can be very powerful for you as you go forward and create things and do your job. It helps you communicate it can help you communicate in a much better way if you'll let it, right? And if you'll use it that way. Are there any questions? I'm running out of time here, so I wanted to talk about one more quick thing, but I wanted to see if you have questions. Okay, I'm going to move on. In the email that Blonley sends out today, she is going to include an activity that I would like for you to do in addition to working on your project. And this activity doesn't have to be done until the end of the total end of the course, right? Which is at the end of Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, whenever you get it, right, done. I'd like, you need to complete it to be considered complete for the course. But what this activity is I want you to talk to somebody famous. I want you to interview them. And the worksheet I've got gives you specific things to go through and ask them. Okay? And
all cross-country members, please stop by the office for your treat bag. Thank you.
So let that finish. Okay. So the idea being, you're going to go through and you're going to interview somebody famous. Could be somebody alive or not alive, but they need to be famous. So in my example, right, I'm a tech guy. I love technology. So I could go in and I could interview Steve Jobs, or I could interview Bill Gates, or I could, if I wanted to, I could interview Emil Achior, Sr., right? Because I could set up a chat bot. Essentially, I could write a prompt that would say, I'm going to interview Emil, and then ask it a series of questions. And based on the data that it's got available, it would try to answer those questions for me. I want you to do the same thing, but I want you to pick somebody you're interested in. And I want you to go through, and you don't have to do the entire worksheet. Just do the first page or a page and a half, right? It's a total of, you'd be doing a total of maybe 5 or 6 comments or chat, asking the chat 5 or 6 things, right? And so to do that, you're going to have a prompt that's going to say, you're going to start off with and say, you are Emil Achior. I would like to interview you. Are you ready to start? ? And it will come back with a response that probably says, yes, I'm ready to start. And then you start asking it questions. So I would like for you to do that. And then I want to talk, I told you you've got the entire time to do it, right? Through the next 3 or 4 days. I'm sure some of you are going to get to it tonight, tomorrow. And so I would like for you to go ahead and do that. And then we'll talk about it tomorrow. And when we talk about it tomorrow, we'll explain and what we're doing, as well as how that can benefit you and how you can do other things with that kind of an approach. So again, it will be a worksheet that will be in your email. It'll be a PDF for you to take a look at, and then come up with your answers and submit those to Blonley at fasttrackvirtual.com. Blonley, if you're there, can you put your email in the chat for us? I think she's there. She just did yeah. So she just posted. So so that's what I've got for you today. What kind of questions do you have?
No
You've got your hand.
questions on my end, Mr. Chris. It's been very clear and insightful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. So when
Yes.
we ask the question and it gives us feedback, are we supposed to copy that feedback and send in an email? Or how are we supposed to give the answer to the question? Or are we going to put it in the format that Bolanle would send us?
The worksheet that Blonley will send you is a PDF. So if you can edit a PDF and do that, great. If you can't, just put some of the questions in the email that you send to her, and that's fine too.
Cool.
Whatever's I don't want to make it. I mean, you could even write it down on a piece. Whoops, you could write it down on a piece of paper and just take a picture of it and send it to her. I'm not really tight on the format. I don't have a particular, I just would like for you to go through the exercise. And then I'd like to see what you came up with.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, then I will see you all tomorrow. And we'll be talking tomorrow. We're going to be talking about ethics and bias, along with talking about the having you go through and understand what the activity was for today. Okay. Thank you, Blonley, for putting your email in there. And okay. Thank you for the thank yous. Everybody have a good evening, what's left of it. And we will see you tomorrow. Thanks for being engaged. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Chris. See you
Thank
tomorrow.
you.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Chris. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Mr. Chris, see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grace. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank
See
you.
you tomorrow.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the call.